Good morning, everyone. I am Tech Cadet Vanilla Melvin, and today I am going to be reporting about our prelims summary. So first is the self from the perspective from the various philosophers. So the Greek ancient triumvirate. So when you talk about triumvirate, it is an association or a group of three. So the first one is Socrates. So Socrates' of self is the one true self is the intellect that constitutes their soul and is separable from their body. So according to Socrates has three components of the soul. So the first one is the rational soul, the spirited soul, and the appetitive soul. So when you talk about the rational soul, it is the reason and intellect to govern affairs. The second soul is the spirited soul. It is the emotions should be kept at bay. The third and the last one is the appetitive soul. It is our base desires, namely the food, the drinks, sleep, the sexual needs, and etc. The next one is Plato. So according to Plato, so as we all know, Plato is a student of Socrates, and most of his works comes from Socrates' writings. So according to Plato's perspective to self, so according to him, the worst thing that can happen to anyone is to live, but to die inside. So so Plato's work mostly comes from Socrates, since he is a student of Socrates. So the next one is Aristotle. So according to Aristotle, the self is a composite of body and soul, and that the soul cannot be separated from the body. So according to him, the soul of a human being is a form or the structure of the human body or the human matter. Now let's move on to the medieval philosophy. So in medieval philosophy, the problems discussed throughout this period are the relation of faith to reason, the existence and the simplicity of God, the purpose of theology and metaphysics, and the problems of knowledge, of universals, and of individuation. So the first medieval philosopher was Saint Augustine, who emphasized attaining knowledge through divine illuminating and achieving moral goodness by loving God. So the next one is Anthony de Mello. So as we all know, Anthony de Mello was an Indian priest and a psychotherapist who was known throughout the world for his writing and for his spiritual conference. And he continues to be known for his storytelling, which drew from the various mystical traditions of both East and West, and for introducing many people in the West to mindfulness based practices. He sometimes called as an awareness prayer. So the self from the perspective from the various philosophers. So modern philosophy. So when you talk about modern philosophy, so it is a philosophy developed in the modern era and is associated with modernity. So when we talk about modern, it is also known as the present times, or it is not so long ago. So Rene Descartes is generally discovered as the father of modern philosophy. So he is commonly known for his statements, I think, therefore I am. So when we when we speak about I think, therefore I am, it talks about whatever I think about myself, it becomes my reality. So whenever you think of anything and you really want it, so it becomes your reality, since you are going to pursue it and you are going to find ways to make your imagination become turn into a reality. So postmodernism. So postmodernism is a movement that focuses on the reality of an individual. It denies statements that claim to be true for all people, and it is often expressed in a pared down style in arts, literature, and culture. An example of a thought of postmodernism is the idea that um, not all people would see stealing as a negative doing, since um, so postmodernism movement arose in the second half of this 20th century as a critical response to assumptions allegedly present in modernist philosophical ideas regarding culture, identity, history, or language that were developed during the 18th century. So, the self and the person self in differing cultural contexts. So, Trendis divided the self into the private self, the public self, and the collective self. So, when we talk about the private self, it is the part of the self that is known mainly to oneself, such as inner feelings and self concept. So, it is what you think, who you are, or what you think of yourself when you look at the mirror, what you think of this is me, what is my behavior when you are all alone. So, when you talk about the public self, so the public self is the view of oneself by others as conveyed through public information, public action, and interaction with others. So when you socialize with other people, so the public self is how people sees you as a person, what they think you are, and how they describe you, since the public self is when you are socializing with other people and you are and they are the ones who can describe you, and they're the ones who the public self is very different from the private self, since the the private self is yourself. You know who it's you're describe you only know who you are when you are alone, not and while the public self is how the people sees you, how unsay pagtan-aw sa mga tao diha nimo. So the collective self is, I mean, while the collective self, it consists of the aspect of the self that are based on memberships in social groups or categories. So it defines you whether what group you are in. So that's all for anthropology. Now let's move on to the self from perspective of sociology. So sociology. So what do you mean by sociology? Sociology is a social science focuses on society, humans' social behavior, patterns of social relationships, social interactions, and aspects of culture associated with the everyday life. The self is a product of modern society, among other construction. So, as we all know, no one could live by himself or herself alone. We need to socialize, to make friends, to have relationship with others in order for us to grow, to mature, to experience new things. Since when we are born, we don't know anything, we don't have any experiences yet. We 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 must learn to explore, to discover new things, to learn in to to we must learn new things that are not taught at home, so that we will grow as a person, to have more experience, to be a better person in the future. So now let's move on to individual versus collective self. So individual self. So the social individual self is the social aspect of self, is an important distinction because other sociologists and psychologists of Mead's time felt that the self was based on biological factors and inherited traits. According to Mead, the self is not there from birth, but it is developed over time from social experiences and activities. According to psychologists and sociologists during med time, self is how you think of yourself. For example, you said that you think of yourself as you are generous, so you love to give, you love to share to other people because that's what make you happy. And but according to med, self is not there from birth. So when you are born, you have no knowledge or no experiences. So you need to learn new things through experience. So by socializing, you can learn new and you can experience new things, and you can be able to. So by socializing, you will find your passion, you will know the things that you love to do. Because when you are socializing, you can discover new things, and you can be able to do the things that you love. For example, when you play basketball every day, and you ma- that you can tell yourself that you love playing basketball, that I enjoy playing this game. And also traumas can be be experienced, since when you are discovering, you when you are exploring, you try new things. For example, you ride a bike and then you crash. So in the long run, you have a trauma, so you no longer want to ride a bike, since the first time you ride it, you had an accident. So that's it for individual self. So the collective self. So since we are exploring, we are learning new things, we need to be in a group or with people whom we share similar thoughts or similar passions when we are. So for example, you love to play basketball, so you love to go with people who loves to do the same things, who love to do sports, who loves to go to the gym. So collective self is being with people whom you have the same passion with, whom you do the same things, who love to do the same things with you. So, in other words, a collective is a group of individuals who love to do the same passion, who love to do the same things, and who share the same ideas. So, the collective self refers to the ideas, the goals, the feelings shared by people in one group. And passion as well. So when we say passion, so you and your best friend have passion in in becoming a pro player. So after school, you go home and then you play hard, s- you so that you can achieve your dreams. And if you're i- it's the same as if you have a passion in becoming a professional basketball player. So you work hard, you you practice, you go to the gym, and you do whatever it takes to reach your passion, to reach your goals, but not individually, but as a group, since you're in a collective self. So collective self, all in all, is doing the same passion, the same things, doing uh being with people whom you have similarities with. That's all. Now let's move on to the self from the perspective of psychology. The me self and the I self. So the me self and the I self is the distinction that has recently regained popularity in cognitive science, especially in the context of experimental studies on the underpinnings of the phenomenal self. So the I self, the I self reflects what people see or perceive themselves during, doing in the physical world. So anything that a people do in the physical world is considered as I self. For example, you recognize someone who is eating, walking, or playing basketball is considered as the I self. So when you are doing anything and someone sees you, recognizes you doing something in this physical world, it is considered as the I self. So the me self. The me self is more subjective and psychological phenomenon. It is referring to an individual's reflections about themselves or reflection about your someone. So when you think about, when you describe the person that as she is, she is beautiful, he is handsome, he is tall, he is short, he is fat, he is thin, or I am handsome, I am I am a I am fit. So that is what you called as the misa of how to describe, or when you refer to an an individual's reflection about themselves or yourselves. So the real self versus the ideal self. So when we talk about the real self, it is who we actually are, and it is how we think, it is how we feel, it is how we look, and it is how we act. It is who we truly are without pretending to be the other person. We just it's just simply being us, being true to ourselves. Well, the ideal self, on, on the other hand, it is who or how we want to be. It is an idealized image that we have developed over time based on what we learned and what we experience. The ideal self could conclude components of what our parents have taught us, what we admire in others, what our society, and what we think is in our best interest. For example, when we want to play basketball and we idolize some NBA players, for example, Kobe Bryant. So we follow his moves and we want to be as good as him because he is my our idol. He is my idol. He is my ideal self. My ideal self wants to be a, an NBA player. So that's it for the real self versus the ideal self. So the multiple self versus the unified self. So when we talk about the multiple self, it refers to the different ways that the individuals interact with the different situations and circumstances in their lives. So it depends on what scenario you will act. For example, you're a boss in a company, so you will act as a boss. So it depends on with it depends with the people you are talking to. So when you are in a family gathering, so if you're a father, so you will act as a father. If you're in a gathering as with your friends, so simply you will act as you will act casual, you will act as a friend. If you're in a with your gathering with your friends, so it is the different styles on how you interact with the people around you. Well, the unified self is the personality that stays within us, or if it is the self that we usually only show to the people we trust and whenever we are alone. So, example, you have a mental breakdown and you keep it to yourself. So, and if you have a one friend that you really trust that you can tell all your problems to him or to her, so that is if you can share it to him, you can really show who you really are. Like if you are comfortable with that person, you can tell all your problems and be comforted by that person. But if you don't have anyone to whom you can talk to or whom you trust, so talking, so only keeping it to yourself. So that is what you call as the unified self. So the true self versus the false self. So when we talk, so the true self is represented by our feelings and our desire, while the false self is the side of us that has changed its behavior, repressed feelings, and push needs aside in order for us to survive. So when we talk about the true self, it is what we really feel, it is what we truly desire as a person, and what are our real thoughts and what we really want. Well, the false self, it is the thoughts, the behaviors, the patterns that we used to want, but we change we change it for us to become better. It is it is our thoughts that have changed through times, through different circumstances. So there are different there are healthy and unhealthy true self. So when you talk about healthy self, it can help us be a better person, while the unhealthy one is it cannot. So that is for the true versus the false self. Thank you.